Welcome. Today we're going to talk about two Doxa examples. First up is a Doxa Sea Rambler from late 1960s, probably 1969. This is a really cool watch. As we'll talk about later, my first experience with Doxa was actually with this Divingstar issued to the French Navy, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But one of the obvious first impressions of this was that it's a total beast. Right? The case is massive. Some days you want to go heavy, and that's a good watch, but it's a lot on the wrist. So I was talking to somebody else, and they mentioned that they had a thin case Doxa, and immediately my interest was piqued, and that difference is very noticeable here. You look at this is the Divingstar, this is the thin case, or what they call the sub 300, and this is a sub 300T. Not sure what the T stands for, but it might be thick. That would make sense. So anyway, this is like a Doxa Sea Rambler. They call it Sea Rambler. Doxa's naming conventions are often follow the color of the dial. So Sea Rambler reflects a silver metallic dial, whereas Divingstar is reserved for the yellow dial. Orange is professional, and so on. So this Sea Rambler has an ETA 2451 automatic movement, 43 millimeter case, 20 millimeter lugs, and with the plexi, which this is the original plexi, you're looking at thickness from the case back to the top of the plexi at about 13 millimeters. Without the plexi, you're looking at about 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters from the very top of the bezel to the bottom of the case, or the case back here. Got a really cool bezel on this with orange accents, of course. That's Doxa chose orange because they found it was actually highly visible, or the best visibility underwater for their trials. You can see here it's got the date, which is handy for everyday use. And as I mentioned, it's got this dual gradation bezel. So on the inner track, you have the minutes, 5, 10, 15, and so on. But on the outer, you have depth ratings for no decompression. Basically, if you're diving to a depth of 60 meters, you can stay for about 5 minutes before you need to start ascending if you don't want to make any decompression stops to avoid getting the bends. And they have different depths and so on. The shallower you are, the longer you can stay down without needing too many stops. Doxa actually got a patent on this dual gradation bezel in the late 60s, and I'll put a reference there for you. So you can see here, one of the cool things about this watch is that this particular example came from the family of the original owner, and it really shows that it was definitely used and lived a good life. I understand this example was used to dive in the Red Sea quite often. It's got a great original bracelet on it. This bracelet is kind of beads of rice bracelet. One thing that's nice about these original vintage bracelets is that you notice here the end links compared to the first link on the bracelet. They're, the first end link is thinner or narrower than the end link. Whereas on the Divingstar and the present reissues, that first link expands a little bit wider to meet the dimensions of the case, and it adds a bigger profile to what's already a pretty sizable watch. Also on the new ones, the bracelets are a lot thicker than these old ones here. It's got a really ingenious design here, a couple interesting features to point out. First is it has a built-in kind of expanding, spring-loaded segment here, which keeps it nice and snug when it's on your wrist. Of course, you can remove links here These are screw-in links, which are really nice actually to remove. Makes it easy. But you've got this expanding section here, and then on the bracelet you also have this ratcheting function here. So you can see here, like, there's a nice satisfying click as you tighten it up. And all that works really without there's just this spring-loaded kind of release here, but really just a fantastic bracelet that I really enjoy wearing. And then the beads of rice, of course, is really just very timeless design here. When I got this plexi, when I got this watch, the plexi was definitely marred up, so just a little bit of poly watch, not too much. I always start with less than I think I'll need, because you can always do more, but just a little bit, just so I can see the dial again, and it came out quite well here. So this one also has the original crown. You can see it's branded there, Doxa. And here's the case back. And it may not show up, but there is a serial number and a model number down at the bottom here. And then these end links are stamped. See here. And really interesting end link design too. It's got like these little vents in there to, I think, facilitate getting water in there so that you can rinse it off and it doesn't get too crusty under there. So yeah, so this is the Sea Rambler. I really like it. 300. It's a sub 300, which again, without that T on it, I think signifies that we've got a little bit thinner case here compared to the Divingstar. And this is a Doxa Divingstar from the 1970s. It's got an ETA 2872 movement in it. This is a big case. This is actually the same width as the Sea Rambler here at 43 millimeters for the case, not counting the crown. So 43 millimeters in this dimension here. But of course, it's a lot thicker. Now this has a flat, actually, glass instead of the plexi. But and so when you measure that from the top to the back of the case, you're looking at 14 millimeters. So, 30 to 40% thicker, depending on whether you're counting this the plexi height or not. But definitely, it's big on the wrist. But it's also very satisfying because of that. This one, as I mentioned, was issued to the French Navy and has seen a lot of use. You can see that the dual gradation bezel has been quite patinated there. Got the a very large crown on it as well. Ratcheting one-way bezel. And let's take a look at this. The yellow obviously is just really beautiful on the dial here, and it's one of the features of the Divingstar that yellow is also quite visible at depth. These are 20 millimeter lugs here, and the case back here. There are some engravings here. These are from Doxa, and the number here 10267 is what's used to track it in the French Navy's watchmaker registers. So there you have it, these two examples here. All right, thank you very much. Have a good one.